Stop scrolling. Yes, you. This is not random, and it's definitely not an accident that you're here right now. Out of everything you could have been doing, something pulled you to this exact moment, and deep down, you can feel it. There's a reason your attention stopped here, even if you can't explain it yet. Maybe you were just passing time, maybe you were escaping your thoughts, or maybe you were searching for something without even knowing what it was. But here's the truth. This moment might be more important than you realize. Because right now, you believe you know who you are. You've built an identity around your name, your past, your struggles, your habits, your fears. You've accepted a version of yourself based on what you've experienced and what others have told you. And over time, that version started to feel permanent, like it's just who you are. But what if that's not true? What if the identity you've been living in is only a small, distorted reflection of your real self? What if you've been trapped inside a version of yourself that was shaped by limitations, by fear, by moments when you felt weak or lost? Think about it. How many times have you said, "This is just how I am"? How many times have you held yourself back because of something that happened in your past? How many opportunities have you ignored because a voice inside you said, "You're not ready," or "You're not good enough"? That voice feels real, but it's not the truth. It's conditioning. It's the result of repetition, of doubt, of experiences that convinced you to shrink instead of expand. And the most dangerous part is, you don't even question it anymore. You just accept it and keep living within those boundaries. That's the trap. Not failure, not rejection, but believing a false version of yourself so deeply that you never even try to discover who you really are. And if you leave this message now, nothing changes. You go back to the same patterns, the same thoughts, the same invisible limits that have been holding you in place. But if you stay, if you actually listen, you might start to see something different. You might begin to realize that the person you think you are is not fixed, not final, not complete. You might start to question the limits you've accepted and the fears you've obeyed for so long. And once that shift begins, once you even slightly open your mind to the possibility that you are more than this current version, everything starts to change. Because awareness is the first step to breaking free, and right now, whether you're ready or not, that process has already started. From the moment you were born, you didn't just enter the world. You entered a system that immediately began defining you. Before you could even understand yourself, labels were already being placed on you. Family, society, experiences, and expectations slowly built a version of who you are supposed to be. At first, it seemed harmless. You were told what you were good at, what you were not good at, what was realistic for you, and what was impossible. Over time, those words didn't just stay around you, they sank into you. They became part of your internal voice, and without realizing it, you started repeating them to yourself until they felt like facts. You began to believe that your limitations were permanent, that your fears were justified, and that your current situation defined your future. But the truth is, most of what you believe about yourself was never questioned. It was accepted. And that acceptance is where the illusion took control. Think about how many times you've stopped yourself before even trying, not because you truly couldn't do something, but because you assumed you couldn't. That assumption didn't come from truth, it came from repetition. Every doubt you've ever heard, every failure you've experienced, every moment you felt small added another layer to this identity you now carry. And the more you repeated those thoughts, the stronger they became, until they started to feel like your own voice. But they're not. They're echoes of everything that tried to define you before you ever had the chance to define yourself. This is how the illusion works. It doesn't lock you in chains. It convinces you that the cage is who you are. The dangerous part is that this illusion feels comfortable. It feels familiar. Even if it holds you back, it gives you a sense of certainty. You know what to expect when you stay within those limits. You avoid risk, you avoid failure, and you avoid stepping into the unknown. But at the same time, you also avoid growth, success, and the possibility of becoming something greater. The life you're living right now is being shaped by the identity you've accepted, not the identity you're capable of. And as long as you continue to believe in that limited version of yourself, you will continue to create results that match it. Breaking this illusion doesn't happen all at once. It starts with awareness. It starts with questioning the thoughts that automatically appear in your mind. When you hear yourself say, "I can't," ask yourself why. When you feel fear, ask yourself where it came from. You'll begin to notice that many of these beliefs don't have real evidence behind them. They're just patterns you've repeated for years. And once you see that, something powerful begins to happen. You create space between who you are and who you've been told you are. That space is where change begins. That space is where you start to realize that your identity is not fixed. It's flexible, it's evolving, and most importantly, it's something you have the power to redefine. There is a voice within you that has been there long before the doubt, long before the fear, long before the world started telling you who you should be. It doesn't shout, it doesn't force, it waits. And most of the time, it gets drowned out by the noise of insecurity, past mistakes, and the constant pressure to fit into expectations that were never meant for you. But that voice is still there, steady and unshaken, reminding you of something deeper, something truer. It's the part of you that knows you were meant for more, even when everything around you tries to convince you otherwise. You may have ignored it, questioned it, or even silenced it, but it has never left you. Because it is not something you learned, it is something you are. The problem is, you've been taught to trust everything except that voice. You've been trained to believe your fears more than your potential, your failures more than your possibilities. When something doesn't work out, you see it as proof that you're not capable. When you face resistance, you take it as a sign to stop. And slowly, you begin to disconnect from that deeper truth within you. You start measuring yourself based on outcomes, comparing your journey to others, and defining your worth by temporary circumstances. But none of those things reflect who you truly are. They are moments, not identity. They are experiences, not definitions. Yet when you attach yourself to them, you shrink your own vision of what's possible. The truth is, you are far more than the version of yourself you've been living. There is strength in you that you haven't fully used, courage that you haven't fully expressed, and potential that is still waiting to be unlocked. Not because it's missing, but because it's been buried under years of doubt and limitation. And the moment you start reconnecting with that truth, everything begins to shift. You stop seeing challenges as barriers and start seeing them as opportunities. You stop questioning whether you're enough and start acting like you already are. Because deep down, you are not trying to become someone new. You are uncovering who you've always been. This realization doesn't come from outside validation. It doesn't come from someone else telling you that you're capable. It comes from within, when you finally decide to listen to that quiet voice instead of the loud doubts. And when you do, something changes in the way you move, the way you think, and the way you see yourself. You begin to understand that your past does not define you, your fears do not control you, and your current situation does not limit you. You start to recognize that you were never meant to stay small, never meant to settle, never meant to live within the boundaries that were placed on you. And once you truly see that, once you feel it on a deeper level, you can't go back to thinking the same way again. Because the truth has a way of breaking illusions, and when it does, it doesn't ask for permission. It transforms you from the inside out. Here's the hard truth most people don't want to hear. The trap that's holding you back isn't obvious, and that's exactly why it's so powerful. It doesn't look like failure, it doesn't feel like danger, and it definitely doesn't announce itself as something that's destroying your potential. Instead, it shows up as comfort. It shows up as distraction. It shows up as that quiet voice that says, "You can do it later," or "This is enough for now." And without realizing it, you start listening. You start choosing what's easy over what's necessary. You start delaying the actions that could actually change your life. And day by day, nothing seems wrong, but nothing moves forward either. Comfort feels safe, but it's also where growth slowly disappears. When you stay in what's familiar, you avoid the discomfort that comes with change. You avoid risk, you avoid uncertainty, and you avoid the possibility of failure. But at the same time, you also avoid progress. Because nothing extraordinary is built inside a space where everything feels easy. The version of you that you're capable of becoming exists outside of that comfort zone. But the longer you stay where it's safe, the harder it becomes to step out. And eventually, what once felt like a choice turns into a habit, and that habit turns into a lifestyle. Then comes distraction, the silent thief of time. It doesn't force you to stop, it simply keeps you busy doing things that don't matter. You scroll, you watch, you consume, and hours pass without you even noticing. It feels harmless in the moment, just a way to relax or escape. But those small moments add up. They become days, weeks, even years of lost potential. And the most dangerous part is that you don't feel the loss immediately. There's no alarm, no warning, no instant consequence. Just a slow drift away from the life you could have been building. Distraction keeps you entertained while your dreams stay untouched. And behind both comfort and distraction, there is fear. Not always loud, not always obvious, but always present. Fear of failing, fear of being judged, fear of stepping into something unfamiliar and not knowing what will happen next. So instead of facing it, you adjust your life around it. You lower your goals, you avoid challenges, and you convince yourself that you're being realistic. But in reality, you're being controlled. Fear doesn't need to stop you completely. It just needs to slow you down enough that you never reach your full potential. This is the trap. Not something dramatic, not something sudden, but something gradual and persistent. It keeps you in motion without progress, busy without purpose, and comfortable without growth. And if you don't recognize it, it will quietly shape your entire life. Because every time you choose comfort over action, distraction over focus, or fear over courage, you reinforce the version of yourself that stays stuck. But the moment you become aware of it, the moment you see it for what it is, you gain the power to break it. And that awareness changes everything, because now it's no longer invisible, it's a choice. Right now, in this exact moment, everything begins to shift, not because something outside of you has changed, but because you are starting to see differently. This is the point most people never reach, the point where you stop blindly following patterns and start questioning them. Up until now, your life has largely been a reflection of what you've believed about yourself. Your actions followed your identity, your choices followed your beliefs, and your results followed your actions. It was all connected. But what happens when you interrupt that cycle? What happens when you look at yourself and say, "This version of me is not the final version"? This is where the turning point lives. Not in some big external event, not in perfect timing, but in a decision. A quiet but powerful decision that says, "I refuse to stay the same." And it doesn't require you to have everything figured out. It doesn't require confidence or certainty or even a clear path. All it requires is a willingness to let go of the identity that has been holding you back. Because the truth is, you can't step into a new life while holding on to an old version of yourself. Something has to change at the core, and that core is how you see yourself. For so long you may have been acting based on who you thought you were. Someone who hesitates, someone who doubts, someone who waits for the right time. But what if you stopped identifying with that version? What if, instead of saying, "I'm not ready," you started acting like someone who learns as they go? What if, instead of seeing yourself as someone who fails, you saw yourself as someone who grows through every attempt? That shift might seem small, but it changes everything. Because identity is not just a label, it's a blueprint. It determines how you think, how you act, and what you believe you deserve. The moment you decide to redefine that identity, your behavior starts to follow. You take actions that once felt uncomfortable. You move forward even when fear is still there. You stop waiting for motivation and start creating discipline. And slowly, your reality begins to align with this new version of you. Not instantly, not perfectly, but consistently. Because once you change how you see yourself, you can no longer comfortably live in ways that contradict that belief. You begin to outgrow your old habits, your old excuses, and your old limits. But here's what makes this moment so powerful. It's available to you right now. You don't need permission. You don't need validation. You don't need to prove anything to anyone before you start. The only thing standing between who you are and who you can become is the decision to step forward. And that decision doesn't happen once, it happens again and again, every time you choose growth over comfort, action over delay, courage over fear. This is your turning point, whether you fully realize it or not, because now you've seen what's possible. You've recognized the patterns, the illusions, and the limits that have been shaping your life. And once you see that, you can't unknow it. The only question left is whether you'll act on it, whether you'll take that step and begin living as the person you know you're capable of becoming. This is it, the moment most people wait for, but rarely recognize when it actually arrives. Not loud, not dramatic, not announced with certainty, but quiet and powerful, right here, right now. The awakening doesn't come with perfect clarity or complete confidence. It comes as a realization, a shift in awareness that something inside you is ready to rise. You've seen the illusion, you've recognized the trap, and you've felt the possibility of something greater within you. And now, there is no going back to who you used to believe you were. Because once truth enters your mind, it begins to change the way you see everything. The version of you that once accepted limits, that once hesitated, that once stayed comfortable even when it felt wrong, that version no longer fits. You may still feel fear, you may still feel uncertainty, but now you also feel something stronger, a sense that you are capable of more, a sense that you've been holding back. And that awareness creates a tension inside you, a choice between returning to what's familiar or stepping into what's possible. Most people choose familiarity because it feels easier, but you're not here to be most people. You're here because something in you is ready to break the pattern. Stepping into your true power doesn't mean everything becomes easy. It means you stop running from what's difficult. It means you face your fears instead of negotiating with them. It means you take responsibility for your direction, even when you don't have all the answers. Power is not about perfection, it's about movement. It's about choosing to act even when doubt is still present, because you no longer allow that doubt to define you. Every step you take in that direction reinforces the truth that you are not limited, not stuck, and not finished. There will be moments when the old patterns try to pull you back. The comfort, the distractions, the familiar excuses, they don't disappear overnight. But now you see them for what they are. They are not who you are. They are habits you can break. And every time you choose differently, every time you act with intention instead of impulse, you strengthen the version of yourself that you are becoming. This is how transformation happens, not in one big moment, but in consistent, conscious decisions that align with your higher self. You don't need to wait for the perfect opportunity, because the opportunity is already here. You don't need to become someone else, because everything you need is already within you. What you need is to trust it, to act on it, and to stop holding yourself back from the life you're capable of creating. The world doesn't change when you wait. The world changes when you move. And once you fully step into that understanding, you realize something powerful. You were never powerless. You were only unaware. You started this message as someone searching, someone scrolling, someone unsure of what you might find, and now you stand at the edge of a truth that can no longer be ignored. Every part of this journey has been leading you to this realization. You are not who you thought you were. Not the doubts, not the fears, not the limitations that have followed you for so long. Those were layers, not your foundation. Those were illusions, not your identity. And now that you've seen beyond them, even for a moment, something inside you has already begun to change. This wasn't just a message, it was a mirror. A moment of clarity where you were forced to confront the gap between who you've been and who you're capable of becoming. You've seen the trap of comfort, the distraction that steals your time, and the fear that keeps you playing small. But more importantly, you've seen that none of those things define you unless you allow them to. The power was never outside of you. It was always waiting for you to recognize it, to claim it, and to act on it. Now the choice is yours, and it's a choice that will quietly shape everything that comes next. You can close this and return to the same patterns, the same habits, the same version of yourself that keeps you stuck. Or you can carry this awareness with you and start making different decisions, one step at a time. Not perfect steps, not fearless steps, but intentional steps. Because transformation doesn't happen when everything is clear. It happens when you decide to move forward anyway. Remember this. The life you want is not built in the future. It is built in the decisions you make after this moment. In the way you think, the way you act, and the way you choose to see yourself when no one else is watching. This is where it begins. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. So don't ignore this feeling. Don't scroll past this moment like it never mattered. Take it with you. Let it guide you. Let it remind you that you are more, capable of more, and meant for more than you've been settling for. And when the doubt returns, when the old voice tries to pull you back, remember what you've realized here today. Because once you truly see who you are, you don't go back. You rise.